Coming to you live on the Government Access Channel from Mario Bagnoni Chambers in beautiful downtown Erie. It's the Taxpayers Hotline Show with your host, Kaz Kwitowski.
Well, here we are. It looks like I'm alone again this week, but we have a phone caller waiting. The rules are real simple. You can talk about anything you want as long as you keep it in the bounds of good taste. And with that said, we'll go to our first caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, I have two questions.
Sure.
My first question is this: is the city's talking about hiring new employees for the protective services, like police and?
Yes.
Okay. Will the city be open to hiring a applicant who's a trans person?
You mean a person that's transgender?
Yes.
That's a good question. I don't think there's any restrictions that I'm aware of. I couldn't give you a definitive answer, but I would say at this point, anybody could really apply. I'm not aware of any restrictions.
Because I hear about, Erie wanting to be very progressive, opening, and friendly to all human beings. And I was just, the question is, would those applicants be discriminated against?
Well, the military, up to a little while ago, was faced with that dilemma. And they were accepting them for a while, but now I think there's some gray area caused by the present administration. So I'm not sure where that's going, but unless I can check on it for you. Would you like me to?
A lot of cities, because in a lot of cities like Texas and California, trans people, they're allowed to teach kids how to read. They volunteer in the schools.
What's your feelings about it?
I think it's fantastic.
Well, I have, personally, I have no problem as long as a person meets the qualifications. To say that when I was in the military, I didn't serve with people with alternate styles of living would be wrong. I wasn't aware of it, but to me, as long as they meet the criteria, I don't think there's a problem. But I will check into it just to make sure. But I'm not aware of any restrictions at this point.
Okay. And my second question is this right here: in California, rehabilitated sex offenders have been given a second chance in California, and they can get jobs, and they can go to school, and they can be, integrated in the community because they're rehabilitated.
Right.
Does the city have anything like that?
The city doesn't, but maybe no, I'm not aware of the city having a program like that, but there's programs being started, I thought, on the county level. I can check into that, but I know there was one such program that was being started, I thought at the county level. It was on the news one day that they're working on a program to address not sex offenders primarily, but they were looking at people that were incarcerated that had less than, high-level felonies and stuff, to look into the fact, like a lot of people have gone to prison.
Oh, yes.
Have gone there on, let's say, the attitude of the country years ago was a little different on who we sent to jail a lot quicker. And some people may have did things while they were young people, since that time to reflect on that, have made changes. And probably if, a lot of it depends on employers. If employers are willing to give them a chance, that should be the case. I think the same thing with the city. If we have a program designed where people are proven they're rehabilitated, and it's not like what in schools you have a difficult problem when you're dealing with kids. You can't apply the same principles there, but like in the city, if we wanted to hire somebody to collect garbage or somebody to do any other task,
the city would be willing to hire.
Well, I don't know about that. It hasn't been approached yet, but I would not be against certain people that have rehabilitated themselves, paid the price. Why should you be punished the rest of your life for maybe something you did stupid when you're a young person. We all, a lot of us did a lot of we'd be amazed at how many people have done stuff in their lifetime that they were probably lucky they didn't go to jail, you know.
Would the city be willing to hire a rehabilitated person?
Well, I couldn't speak, I could speak for myself. I would have no problem, you know, depending on the nature of the crime and everything. It hasn't been proposed yet, but if it was, I would say, you know, it would be something we should look at.
Someone who wanted to be in protective services in that type of position.
Well, that becomes a problem because under certain state laws, you cannot, it's just like being a teacher, working around kids, being in the legal profession, even lawyers and stuff. Certain crimes right now are prevent you from getting a license or the ability to, you know, work as a police officer. And unless that's changed at the state level, or the federal level, probably more so state,
Yeah.
that will never happen. That's why we warn kids, be careful what you do when you're young. Certain things will stick with you, and where a misdemeanor might not prevent you, I think a felony definitely would, you know?
Because in California, they're very progressive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people who have convictions have been rehabilitated.
And once again, that would be on the state level. So that would be an appropriate question for state legislators, whether they would change the law enough to, allow that. Now, if you're dealing with the federal level, I don't know what the rules are there. Like if you want to be in the FBI or be a federal judge or something, or an attorney for the federal government, I'm not aware of what their rules are.
Now, so the city of Erie would not be opposed to hiring a rehabilitated?
I can't speak. I'm only one council person. But if it was, you'd have to probably talk to the mayor, and if he proposed it, and it would be up to council to approve it, I would be okay with, like I said, I'd have to look it over and see what it pertained to. But I would not be, in certain cases, I think I would not be against, having people be reemployed.
So which, in your opinion, which certain cases would be acceptable or not?
Well, I would say a lot of the, we get, obviously crimes of violence are, a whole different ballgame. But a lot of people that got caught for theft or maybe small uses of drugs, but were not, major drug dealers or something, they may have been caught with a quantity of, at the time that, would sentence them to a long sentence. And I think, something like that I think needs to be looked at, looking at it in today's standards compared to what was the standards years ago.
But let's say if the person has been rehabilitated and they want to integrate back into the community, contribute to society, protect the community.
Well, that's going to be, like I said, that's going to be an interesting discussion. And it probably needs to happen because I noticed lately there is a lot more conversation about rehabilitation, hiring people. It's been on the news. There are different committees being set up. So I think it's moving that way. But if you're interested in it, you probably need to contact the county and the state legislators. And if you want, maybe call the mayor's office, ask him what his opinion is. But it hasn't come before council yet.
In your opinion, do you think one day that might go to that committee?
I think it'll be what's being addressed now. So I would think that as we incarcerated a lot of people years ago for what we today believe are didn't deserve that, to the extent we did. I think we'll look at those things now. There'll be crimes that probably will not fall in that category. For instance, it takes a lot to rehabilitate a person if he's guilty of fraud or embezzlement and then have him run your books again. That's a big leap of faith. So that'll all have to be discussed.
Okay, then.
But, you have a good opinion. I think, I'm going to check into it for you and try to get you an answer. If there's anything at the city level that's being done now that hasn't been brought before council. I'll be meeting with the mayor and I'll ask him.
Okay, then. All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, and call me back next week. I'll see if I have anything.
Okay,
I'll be meeting this week with the mayor, so.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's always that's an interesting topic, and years ago we incarcerated people at a terrible rate for things we thought today, didn't merit it, but go ahead, caller.
Let's take a little tour around the city.
Oh, let's not. I'm embarrassed.
Are you really? Well,
I wonder if everybody, I was going to bring it up, but I think you're going to talk about it, so go ahead.
well, no, I'm not going to talk about the mattresses and the wood laying all over. That is typical of some households. But let's go to 38th and Holland.
Okay.
And the contractor ripped out the medial, and they paved it from 38th and Holland.
Are you talking about the VA entrance?
Yeah, from 38th and French to 38th and Holland. They took all that green space out. Your arborist went in and took all the trees out.
Mm-hmm.
What is the city going to do to replace all that green space that was eliminated?
You mean the boulevards apparently are not going back in.
Well, I understand that, but what are they going to make in? Are they going to plant any trees? You know, they did that to Nelson out in Mill Creek.
I must be immune. I ride by there every day. Did they? You get used to not looking at it. They ripped all the trees on the boulevard, right?
They did that last year before, and I think I called you and told you that I had the impression they were going to take out those boulevards.
Yeah, well, they had to take out part of it. I was kind of surprised the amount of boulevard they took out.
They took it all the way up to Holland Street.
Yeah, now remember, that's a state road, so, they can do, well, no, that's not a state road, that's ours.
No, that's city.
Yeah, but I'm sure they had recommendations, how to make it happen. So,
I'm talking about the lost green stuff.
yeah, I'll talk to Sarah when I see her, because she'll be the one to talk to.
I think that's a worthless, never mind, I won't make that comment.
I actually can get a hold of her if I catch her in the office at the right time.
Yes.
But I will ask Sarah about what they plan on doing. Last time I talked to her, I was sure she told me that they planned on putting something in there, but they were waiting until the project was done.
Probably concrete,
No, I hope not. I hope it's trees.
pots with a few plants in them.
No, I hope it's trees. But I tell you that one thing Sarah's doing, she's putting trees in that are more in line with, not having trees that are going to be problems in the future.
Well, they had them short, non-bearing fruit trees. They went for that, and they went a little too much.
Because what happened down in the city, we had a lot of them that they planted years ago that the roots are upturning the concrete.
Concrete, yeah, they will do that.
And then they're going into buildings, and so I mean, she's looking at it from a more aesthetic. What kind of trees will be good for a city, and be hardy at the same time. Because when you're dealing with fumes and everything.
Yeah, that's true. Now let's take this little a little more farther east. Now let's get up to 38th and by the Red Fox and that.
Yeah, I checked into that again, but go ahead. I'll try to fill you in.
I see there's finally permits in the windows. I don't think they had them before. And I do see that the garbage container in the back on the northwest end is gone. So apparently you have done some good, and they're kind of responding.
Well, I hope they are, but I still hope there's not a problem there, like, the gentleman brought up.
Of course, I don't go by in the evening time.
I don't either, not generally that way, but, I try to, once in a while, try to come through there.
And now let's go up the street to Hoyt and Page. I see they removed some of the bubbling earth, I'll call it, out, but nothing's done there. And then you go up to Page between 38th and 41st Street. It's a mess in the middle of the block. There's concrete breaking up or blacktop breaking up still. And
you mean in the street?
Yeah. Going south. There's a couple manhole covers. There's some sewer basins that are caving in, and
I'm going to call somebody that I know and see if they got if the list is out yet a little bit, enough that I can see it.
Yeah, you think council would be there and to vote on which should be and shouldn't be.
Well, we will, after they present it, but the process is one that is always subject to great debate.
Well, Well, it depends on who it is and where it's at.
Yeah, it's evidently true because you get the same.
The same roads done over and over again.
I mean, they'll tell you it's high volume, but still,
High volume is high taxes.
yeah, sometimes that. Well, like what they did to my street after a number of years is good, and they need to do that all along the east side. Those roads that were done under Joyce Savacchio are starting to get to the time where, they probably need to be looked at.
Well, all the water lines and sewer lines are lined under Joyce Savacchio too. They were supposed to last how long? How much money did we lose there? I see there's more water breaks down on 38th Street again.
I wonder why that is.
Can't be cold weather, can it?
No, you wouldn't think so.
It's called bad piping.
I hope not, but you might be right.
Spot replacement. Okay, let's go a little bit farther now. Let's go along. I see there's a gentleman running a bicycle repair van. He got a small business loan from Gannon, and he's going around. Does he have to buy a license?
He would. Yes, I think he would. I can talk to Dave Rocco about it. I didn't see that, but I believe if you do, like if you go around, approaching people like at their homes and stuff, we do have I think a permit process, if I remember what David told me. But I would check on, he'd be no different than a food van like.
Well, yeah, it's true, and it's like a moving business.
And he's a bicycle, you said bicycle repair?
Yeah, it's in yesterday's paper.
Yeah, I'm not against these people, and I said, if we charge them a small fee, for the convenience of, doing that, and I don't think $100 is, great, but, that way, we know who they are and what they're doing.
Well, he's making income. Who's he turn his income into?
What do you mean?
He's getting paid per repair job. It's just like if I had a bicycle repair shop. Mm-hmm. I'd have to have my books and who's coming in and what I'm spending to cover the state and federal and local taxes.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure he has, I hope, I can't say he does, but he's got to pay taxes,
True. Okay, let's leave that. Now let's go to Zebo. Was it our turn to go down to Zebo? I know we're sister cities.
Well, there's no turn, it's always up to, I can tell you this, the Polish Lublin Committee came to Erie about 2 or 3 times before we reciprocated. And after a while, they got a little disenchanted because, they said it would be nice to see us again,
Well, the mayor was spotting pretty good from his trip down there, saying that 30 exchange students are bringing money and income into the city here.
We had that many with the Polish and the Irish delegation through Mercyhurst. I mean, those are cultural and those are nice. I always doubt how much college kids bring into the economy.
That's true.
Because a lot of it is dependent upon, the ones that use like the breakfast place or other businesses.
That's local businesses. That doesn't bring in a lot of money.
No, I mean, it's nice when you have a college with, but like what the colleges are doing now, they're putting convenience stores on campus.
And convenience stores.
Bars
and stuff.
So, that destroys the whole, in the old days, like when I went to college, the kids in the community, like downtown with Gannon, and
you went to State Street Food Market, right, all those places down there, and you purchased from local vendors.
Right, and my wife out there in Villa, they would go to West Erie Plaza. They would buy clothes and food. Well, food not so much because they had food on campus, but other stuff, other necessities, they would use the community,
Well, he's anticipating businesses coming over. I haven't yet to see a business coming from China or from Poland set up here.
Well, the only thing I ever seen was there was a bunch of Irish fishermen that set up across from Blessed Sacrament.
And they bailed out real quick.
Well, Erie's a tough town.
Well, Erie won't pay the price.
No, that's true, and they had quality fish,
True.
They really did. They were bringing in the guy explained to me, they were flying it in within a day's catch.
Well, they have to. They have to keep it fresh.
Right. And that was tough enough, but people didn't want to pay the price. And as far as the Polish delegation, we tried to get the airport here, but things didn't line up right. But a lot of these are cultural, and unless with the Chinese one, that was done years ago when Lords and GE had a vested interest in. They were selling locomotives to China, and I think Lords was it Lords or Sterilizer had business there. That was the first trip, I think.
I think it was Sterilizer.
Yeah, I think they had a vested interest in it. So from that aspect, those are good.
True.
And if you go on one of these trade missions, if you haven't been on one, they really like pomp and circumstance in these other countries. So bringing the mayor and a few people, especially if you got the same name as them, like when we went to Poland, they kind of like that, But it was always a hope of Jim Thompson to bring business, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But in the case of the Chinese, I don't know if they're going to bring something small in here. Now, if we were after, let's say like a Sanyo or one of those big companies,
I don't think you'll see that. Just like the mayor says, they're going to bring manufacturing over here. When is he going to realize government does not make jobs?
Well, no, but if like in the case of like when Honda came here, or Sanyo, or any of those other companies that did business here, those were done on a huge statewide level.
True.
And there was tax incentives and everything else that went into the project. I don't know, how much. I'd like to see Zebo bring something here, but can I say they would? I don't know. Up to now,
I wouldn't go out on that limb anyhow.
I mean, GE, I don't know about the locomotives anymore, but I remember years ago they told me that basically the Chinese were going to build their own locomotives,
They just get kits from GE. Of course, it's Wabtec now, but
and GE had no choice but to say, hey, at least we keep guys working for a short time,
True.
So they made money. I don't know what the Sterilizer was or Lords.
One other thing here, real quick.
Go ahead.
Think about the school district going to sell Wayne Middle School.
Yeah, I saw that today.
$250,000 in this outfit, and our place is going to purchase that, I believe. They're going to be on the tax roll.
Right. That's what I haven't seen it. It was my wife read it to me today. Are you in favor of that, or?
I'm in favor of it, but I don't think that's enough money for the building.
Well, I don't know. First of all, John, not being on the school board anymore, I don't know what the building was appraised at, and I don't know how much trouble they had pushing it.
That's true.
But
well, they're taking all these.
A lot of times, schools are tough to redevelop.
Yes.
So maybe I don't know if that's considered a good deal for them.
I thought they went through that and they made all kinds of improvements. I thought they were cooking meals in there for some reason, where they used to cook them up on 18th Street. They had a kitchen.
Well, the major kitchen is behind our city garage.
Yeah.
And I don't think if they cook up there, some of the high schools still had the ability to cook.
Oh yeah.
And
they're talking about these new curriculums they want to get into the schools. We had special classes way back when in every school.
Right.
And all these problem kids would go there and they'd be, taught and trained and everything else. Mm-hmm. We had shop classes. We had electrical classes. We had the whole shot. And now they want to go back to that concept.
Well, yeah. Well, one thing about education I learned, John, it's like a giant wheel, and everybody takes a turn.
It comes back.
Yeah, we just reinvent the wheel each time. Instead of going to the teachers, they got to make the thing work and say, what's the best system we got? Or look at history. When we train people in the trades and stuff, and it worked, why do we keep changing?
It's true. Like they want to put a person on the bus. They did that years ago.
Well, yeah, we did. A lot of the stuff we did.
It's coming back to
it. But, they went through this inclusion policy where everybody had to be together. Then they did other things, and it just reinvents the wheel each time around. And I don't know, it's amazing that like kids aren't good at history and geography, and no wonder they're testing for the test now.
Okay, now the last and final thing here.
Yeah, before you get me yelled at, so go ahead.
We're going to be stuck again with this bond, and we're going to find out we're digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper, and we're going to have to get someone on that finance committee. Maybe we need a new finance director, and we're going to find out that the city taxpayer is going to get slapped a hefty millage.
Because of the bond.
Because of the bond, and you can't rob Peter to pay Paul.
Well, I am not in favor of the bond issue, even though I voted on it. It was the only choice we had.
That's a temporary fix.
Yes, but my long-term fix is very uncomfortable to a lot of people.
That's what I'm saying. We should take the long-term fix and make the proper adjustment for the millage. You're going to hear a lot of people screaming, I want a fixed budget.
Yeah, well, everybody's on a fixed budget, basically.
And we're going to have to do something with the non-profits and everything else. We're going to have to start charging for services.
Well, that's on a state level, and that's a tough nut to crack.
Well, then I'll have to start talking to a few state representatives.
I tell people all the time. I badger. You can ask Bizarro, Harkins, and Mirsky. And Mirsky's well aware of it now because he was a councilman, and he agrees.
But they say once you get on that other side of the grass, it's supposed to be greener. It might be greener for him. His salary has gone up.
Well,
I don't know if he's retired.
Well, here's the problem, John. And I know somebody's going to get mad because I let you on here for a while, but you brought up a good topic, and here's the problem. There's more suburban and rural legislators than there are urban, which means that when you take out the Eries, the Pittsburghs, the Allentowns, the vast majority of those representatives...
Philadelphia.
Even Philadelphia, but Philadelphia is its own animal, its own beast.
That's right.
But once you get out of there, and you look at the makeup of the House and the Senate in Pennsylvania, there's a lot more of the rural and suburban that don't share in our problems. Like Mill Creek, they may have a little problem with tax exempt, but not like we do. And so you got resistance on taxing these, like the local church or the local nonprofit, where, we're dealing with them, big time in the city. So unless that changes, and I tell people, badger these guys, but also you have to badger the Bradley Roys of the world that are out in West County.
True, but churches do pay taxes on their property.
Some of it, not all of it.
You don't pay the tax on where the church is at.
No, but I heard, let's see, what did I hear was tax exempt? The rectory pays taxes, I believe, but I don't believe the parking lot pays taxes.
So I don't know, I got into almost...
But you're right, they pay partial taxes. But you look at Mercyhurst and all those other places in Canada.
That should be another deal.
Well, we should, I agree with you, we should at least have, I'll agree with you on 2 points. We need to have a public safety tax at the very least.
True.
On everybody. And as far as the other problem you brought up, what was that? Instead of bond issue, I think we should propose a tax, be honest about it, and put it in a special fund only for roads, and every year decide which roads are going to be done and have a pattern, so that you can look at it and say, at least I know in 10 years my road will be done.
True, and maybe we got to put a moratorium on vehicles that we don't need.
That's what council looks at that, but because of the way the ordinances are written, the mayor has a little latitude in what he can lend out.
Well, as long as he's got 4 votes, he can do backflips.
But there are people, and there's a couple council people with me that want to see some changes made. But it's like you say, John. It takes 4. It takes 4 to do it.
Well, I think there's going to be a big shakeup down there in city council after this election.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you got 3 chairs up for grabs.
Yep. And so, we'll get off the line here and we'll listen contently. If it's quiet, we'll call back.
Okay. And he brought up a lot of good questions, and I guess I got a lot of homework to do. But that has been a topic of, should we have bond issues? And regrettably, I voted. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Chaz. A couple of things. I'm glad John's got off because he was going in for 15 minutes.
Well, if he's got something good and he just kept rolling.
I know.
Yeah, but I'm going to hopefully we get a few more callers. Go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things, those boulevards up there on 38th Street, I used to attend a dentist on the other side of 38th Street.
Right.
So the boulevards are safety zones for people crossing the streets. Like in my case, you can't cross 38th Street completely in one walk.
Right.
Lights are and everything. So you have to have those boulevards in here so people who cross the street to have a safety zone. So I hope they remember that. That's why, that's just like what they're going to do at the roundabout. They're going to put a little safety spot in the center for people crossing to get step on so the traffic allows them to cross the other way.
I'm going to have to I'll contact the engineer to see what they got in mind for that area around the VA. See what the final drawings look like. But I'm going to check on, what they're going to do with the boulevard situation. Because you're right, that'll be, a key entry point.
Right. And then, I don't know about those roundabouts down below. Have you looked into them more to see how is somebody going to cross those streets safely? Because I know they're talking about putting this overpass.
Which roundabout you talking about? The Bayfront?
Yeah, Bayfront and State.
Well, that's an ongoing process. In fact, we're going to have another public hearing, I was told. They had some, you probably didn't go to it, they had one down at the, that church in the Bayfront, I think it's a church in the Nativity.
Okay.
The Orthodox church, I believe it is. I don't want to say the wrong thing. But, Reverend Simon's church.
Okay, unless I can get a ride, I can't make those things. So
That would have been interesting because they had all the charts up there and you could vote on it. I think you can, if you can get somebody to bring it up on the computer, I think you can still vote. I'm not positive, but they had a place where, if you can blow up your screen enough where you can see it.
I don't use my computer because you can't see it.
Oh, yeah, if you could vote on it. They had the designs. Now, nobody's decided yet, Richard. The preferred way, I think, is they'd like to run the one road that goes east and west. They want to run that down below on the railroad track, sort of. But the big problem is going to be, what do they do on the north-south road, meaning State Street? And also there's one, I think, at Holland that has to be addressed also. All along that Bayfront, they're looking at what's the best plan about pedestrian. I think they're leaning towards a roundabout situation, but they're also talking about maybe overhead bridges, which, would help. Trouble with overhead bridges, they tend to be very expensive. Although I like the idea of overhead bridges a lot more than, at grade. I think you can have a combination of both, but I think a lot of times, like when you're crossing on the West Bayfront, like when you're going to that park and everything, I would be in favor there of, coming down by bridge more than having them come down to, street level.
Right. The thing would be the weather too, overhead bridge means there'll be more snow accumulation here. If it's an underpass,
well, it depends depends how they do it, whether they cover it or. We're gonna have the same problem at you're aware on. They're working on it now at the East Side Connector and Buffalo Road area.
Okay.
We got to address that issue around like Burger King and that, where the people presently can cross. They're looking at what's the best way there to facilitate movement now that the McBride Viaduct is down.
And I'm going to bring up something about that first caller you had today.
Well, about the felons and stuff?
Well, I think he is indicating the idea of how much would the city hire or take on people who are in a process of, like he mentioned, transgender.
Oh, well, that's...
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, like he mentioned California. I have cousins that live out in California. One is a doctor, the other one's a nurse, and they tell me what's going on in that area of California. Other that's being reconsidered. They did pass some rules, and they might be rechanging them because it's getting to be quite an expense. That's probably why, like you said, the present administration has taken to change the.
Well, I don't know if they did or I haven't talked to the mayor about it, but the military, they're going back and forth with the issue.
Well, here's the issue. It's not the issue whether they transgender or not. It's becoming part of the a governmental body, employed by the government body, to cover the cost of making the changes that they want. That's where it becomes absorbent. Like in the military. My brother was, when he retired, that was one of the issues they fought with, that the cost of insurances that they had to would be given in the military were getting high because people coming in to be transgender getting their complete transformation paid for by the government.
Well, that can be addressed in many other ways. There could be, that you can mandate that be taken care of ahead of time. But, a lot of times with the military, people get offended. But my question to them is, with an all-volunteer army, what do you do when you have shortages?
Well,
I always ask them.
It should be done before ahead of time.
I mean, well, yeah, we can address that. But to say that, we won't let them in when we have a shortage, my question is, okay, where's your Johnny or where's your Sally? Are they going to join and take their, and a lot of people don't want their kids in the military. So, it's a fine line, and
there's some issues with that.
It's definitely going to be a very, well, even now where they're fighting on the court level, but, they've ordered schools to accommodate. Now some are saying no. It'll probably end up in the Supreme Court.
I think it will.
Yeah, what has to, because somebody's going to have to, you can't have like 50 different rules, and what's dangerous about 50 different rules is, well, I don't want to say it on the air, but I'll talk to you privately about
I know.
things that happened years ago that by today's standards we would look at and we go, you're kidding, but just the way different governments view different problems, but I would say it's something we have to look at, but I'm not aware of anything on the city level.
Right. Well, the thing is, you're going to have mental health issues because, like I got family members in all different divisions of the mental health program, and I'm hearing what they have to say about it, and even the caseworkers are having trouble with that, how to deal with them because it's a problem. But that's just something you and I have to talk about offline.
Yeah.
I got one cousin that became an alcoholic, but then he retired out of the Marines because he had a commander that was transgender, and the transgender didn't know what to do. But that's something I can tell you about later. But anyway, the city has to make sure they have an insurance policy set up so that they are not joining the police or fire department, so that the insurance company will be paying the cost of what they need done.
The city is self-insured.
Then that's where you'd have to watch.
Well, we're responsible for, we have an administrator, but we are self-insured.
Yeah, but you'll be looking at $200,000 per person if they decide to go in and want that done.
Well, I think it all depends how you approach it, whether you say, what you're willing to pay for and what you're not willing to pay for.
No.
But,
That's just what you have to watch. You have to be careful. Anyway, that's basically the two things I wanted to talk about. The only other thing I'm still watching is speeding on Old French Road here. So keep an eye on that.
We're going to be meeting with the police chief, I think, this week, and I will bring it up to him, okay?
Yeah.
I'll see I agree with you. I think, all around the city, I'm amazed at the amount of speed.
Well, give me a call and talk offline, because I don't want to tie up the line for others that might want to call you.
Okay, no problem, but like I say, I will bring that up with the chief this week. I think it's this week we're meeting with him. It would be either this week or next. And I'll bring up Old French Road, because you're right about that. That's kind of like open territory.
It is, and hopefully they can do something.
And there's many others like that too, but that's one that I'm familiar with because, it's almost a clear shot right up to 38th.
Well, the kids don't cross there anymore like they used to at school. I don't know where they're crossing now. I understand they must be crossing down at 26 or something to get over down to the other side.
But we do have to slow down traffic. I mean, it's amazing, how fast people are going.
You take care. I'll let somebody else call.
No problem. Thanks for calling. Good to have a busy day. I hate to be bored here, but It's we got a lot of issues. Here we go. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, talking about overhead passes for pedestrians. How do you compensate for handicapped people in a situation like that?
Well, I guess it depends specifically where you're talking about, but I'll give you an example. At the Civic Center, you ever been there at the Convention Center?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to go from the hotel to Sheraton, it's only the Sheraton that's affected. If you want to go from the Sheraton to the Convention Center, there's a canal there basically, correct?
Yeah.
So what you do, you take the elevator up to the top, and then you either take your wheelchair or walk across the overhead, then you take another elevator down. So what would probably happen, what we're talking about is like if you're going to a concert at the, let's say the Liberty, what do they call it now, the amphitheater?
Yeah.
I forget who owns it now, I mean, who has their name on it.
Yeah, I think it's Pepsi now.
But right now you gotta walk down a ramp like a long hill.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at, though. At the convention center, you're going from building to a building. If you're just getting across the Bayfront Highway, that's.
Well, what they'd have to do is they'd probably have to angle it, number one. But there have to be a system, and I've been in other cities where I had to cross across a street with with a walkway.
Yeah.
And what they usually did, and it's expensive, this is probably why, they're kind of thinking about this, because if you're coming down from the hill, and that's what we'd be talking about,
Yeah.
like Front Street, you're coming down, obviously. So your grade has to be specific as if it's ADA qualified, because you can't have what do you call a speedway where the wheelchairs run down the hill. So it would probably be a situation where you would come across at a controlled declination or angle, and then you'd probably have to have a tower set up.
Yeah, well, I thought when they were first talking about building that hotel there at the foot of Liberty Street on the Bayfront Highway, I thought that wasn't supposed to include an elevator for access from the top of the hill to the water level.
Well, that was when there was going to be an office building. They were talking about that. I remember that. In a way to pacify the neighbors, they were going to build a tower there, if you remember.
Oh yeah, a lot higher above the bluff.
Well, it wasn't going to go above the bluff. That was the problem. Because, like, if you look at, you're talking about where the cobblestone is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cobblestone's only about, 2 or 3 stories? I think 2. Am I right, or is it 1?
I can't remember how many stories it is.
Yeah, it's probably no more than 2. But the original building they planned there was going to be a tower that was going to fit into the side of the building, the side of the hill, but it was to be no higher than the bluff. So what they were going to do to pacify the neighbors was they had agreed to put an elevator in there that you would, walk onto the roof basically, and you would take an elevator down to the water level, the street level. But of course that was thrown out when Tom Kennedy built the cobblestone, because it's not very high, and you couldn't put an elevator. I don't know how you would do it. You'd have to put a shaft up against the hill.
Yeah.
So that kind of ruined that. But yeah, they were planning on it back when they were justifying the height of that building, because I think they wanted to go higher in the bluff, but the neighbors weren't willing.
Yeah.
So I think they were still negotiating it. But if we did put,
well, even if they put in a roundabout there, like at the Bayfront Highway
Yeah.
and State Street, for people to cross that, if you put in an overhead crosswalk, then you would almost have to put an elevator in for people in wheelchairs and then handicap access.
we'd probably have to have a tower set up.
Is it the ADA? Look at how many curb cuts there are to nowhere. So
Right.
they would really raise a big stink if you put in stairs, crosswalk at Bayfront Highway stuff.
Well, I think you'd see a tower situation probably.
Yeah.
And Nick Scott, one of his plans is if he builds another hotel, he wants, I think his plans, and I'm not speaking for him, but he was going to tie it in with Hammett so that people that stayed overnight, they used to have one at Hammett, but they don't anymore. They would have like a setup where people that were going to stay there long term, they could stay in the hotel, and he was going to put a walkway in.
Yeah.
And I think that was going to be between he and Hammett, you know, the cost of it. But it would be probably, you know, for Hammett's sake, it'd be kind of like what, if you ever been to the Cleveland Clinic, they have a series of overhead walkways.
Yeah, well, even at Lord's, when Lord's was on 12th and
Right, they had one.
Garden there, they had overpass
And we had them on 12th Street too, remember?
factories there along 12th Street had pedestrian overpasses.
Yeah, those you can take care of because you have elevators in the buildings. But you're right. If we do it on the bayfront, you know, what I probably see happening is, and I can't say this, I'm not the engineer designing it. I think you would probably see towers where you come down from the hill, you'd probably be at a very, and then once again, you know, getting the people back up that hill, you probably have to keep them almost level, I would think.
Yeah, and then even they could probably almost do like what's the Pittsburgh Steelers stadium there, Heinz Field?
Yeah.
Got them spirals.
Right, you could do that. You know, it'll be an interesting theory. I think it's the safest way, but it's also costly.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? I always look at safety. What's the cost of a couple lives? You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you put in something like elevators and that, then you got to worry about safety and homeless people, and then even tunnels. If you put a tunnel under a roadway, you know, that's more or less shelter for a lot of people.
Well, I can tell you what they did. I was in Chicago. We were staying in a hotel where to cross into, they had an overhead walkway designed to go into this building they called, I'm trying to think, it was like the Mercantile. They had made it into a series of restaurants and retail stores. And to get you from the hotel over there, you had to go across a overhead. What they did was they had people assigned there, much like the Port Authority does.
Yeah.
Controlling who went in and out of there, you know, especially at night.
Yeah, there's another expense, though, that's 24/7 security on something like that.
Well, you know, I think if you see what's going to happen at the GAF property, at least what we hope is going to happen, that's probably going to be one of the things you're going to have is security. Much like the Port Authority hires some of our retired or off-duty policemen to patrol the areas around the convention center at night.
Yep.
I think you're going to see that if and when development happens down there, it'll be a necessary part of the process. Because you can't have people investing down there and just leave it open at night.
Yeah, because even combining some security with, like, they got that Homeland Security. I mean, you know, what's the real threat of a terrorist coming through the Port of Erie?
Well, you know, I always said that one of the things that
just as regular security, you know, for the area.
I always said that, you know, little cities like us, we take it. We don't think we're going to ever happen to us, you know.
Oh yeah, it can definitely happen, but you know the chances are still slim.
Right, but I think you'll see. I really think you'll see an effort that when a convention center controls that piece of property, and I think some of the bridges will be going down into either Port Authority or convention center property. I think you'll probably see that if there are towers there and elevators, they'll either be locked off at certain times, or you'll see, you know, security around them that'll be necessary for the other businesses that hopefully come.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not handicapped, but I support the handicap in saying that.
Yeah, so you have to be careful how they do it because, you know,
you can't do anything like that without them in mind, you know, because they can't walk up and down steps on pedestrian bridges, you know.
You know, not even people in wheelchairs. Think about elderly people that, you know, have a little trouble, you know, going uphill a little bit can be, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But it'll be interesting, and I think when that time comes, I would hope that they, you know, deal with, like, the Voices Independence and other groups. They get there, you know.
Yeah, well, and I think most architects nowadays, when they even think of something like that, they're, you know, the ADA is part of it.
Well, it's a big part that, you know, they have money too, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, yeah, just a thought.
Yep, well, it's a good thought, and people like you, we need more of you. You know, we don't have many people that want to, you know, some of the best suggestions come from the public and people that are not the architects and the engineers, you know. They look at things more practical, you know.
Yeah, because I like the few roundabouts we have around Erie County now. I think they're great. I don't travel them every day, but it keeps traffic flowing. Very seldom comes to a stop at a roundabout.
The only trouble I have with them is when you go to like Philadelphia and you're late at night and you're on what they call the 2-lane ones.
Yeah, the multiple lane ones. Them can be a little confusing.
Yeah, your GPS cannot react properly.
Yeah.
I went around in a circle. I think I saw the same statue in Philly about 6 times before I finally figured it out.
Yep. All right, take care.
Hey, thanks for calling. I always love them.
Take care.
See ya. Yep, we got a lot of stuff on the platter today, and a lot of thought process will have to go into that bayfront when and if development occurs there, and dealing with elderly people, handicap, physically challenged. It's going to be it may be costly, but we need to look at it. I'm an advocate of bridges and overheads compared to at grade because I think less chance of accidents happen, especially when you're dealing with, if you're dealing with the amphitheater with, where you have a volume of people or with the convention center. It's just good to have, the less problems you have, the better. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, I'm going to recall about Doc. I didn't talk about removing the boulevards anywhere. I just talked about the one up there by the Vets Hospital, and there hardly is any foot traffic across that.
No, but I think they'll probably address it, won't you think?
I would think so.
Yeah, but I just hope they don't. Right now, there's no plans on tearing out any more boulevards.
Well, I think he was talking about State Street.
Oh, that one, yeah. That one, I wouldn't think they'd tear that down either,
That goes all the way from 26th Street to 38.
I don't see anything there that says they're going to do that.
And the ones farther east, they do have walkways for people with wheelchairs and whatever, all the way up to Pine Avenue.
Yeah.
By Arby's, by Mercyhurst, they're all in there.
And they never continued that, east of there, if you notice.
True.
That's always been so. I think the boulevards back then were more decorative than they really were a safety issue.
One more quick thing, talking about safety issues. Those lights at the Bayfront connector up on 38th Street are still not synchronized.
Now, you say that every time, but I don't see a problem, but maybe I have to sit there with you someday.
Well, I've seen coming from both ways.
Yeah, what's the problem? Is they change?
Light changes in the middle lane, and you're just across where you're stopping. All of a sudden, the light is red, and either you go through it or you're in the lane going north or south.
You must be at the end cycle when that happens.
It could be.
Because it's never happened. I say this truthfully, it's never happened to me, but I think if you go through and you see the light like turning yellow, you're probably going to be in trouble.
That's true. That's what happens.
But
then if a police officer tries to arrest you, I think you'd be going to court with him.
Well, as long as you don't speed. The way, and I'm not an attorney, but I think if you don't hit the gas pedal, and you're into the intersection when the light turns yellow, you can proceed with caution, I believe.
You have to.
But if you hit the gas pedal, you're in trouble.
Well.
Because then, they're saying that,
if you don't hit the gas pedal, you're in trouble.
Yeah, but then again, it's like...
you're hanging right in the middle of the lane of...
You're in limbo at that point.
Yep.
But if they usually figure if you hit the gas pedal, you're trying to beat, No,
you're not trying to beat it. You're trying to protect your tail.
You know what I'm going to do, John? I'm going to ask the traffic engineer how they have them set up, as far as the timing.
True.
That's at Bayfront, what I call East Side Connector.
Yeah, East Side Connector and 38th Street.
Yeah, I know the exact one because I go through there all the time. On my way to one of my grocery stores that I do a couple of them. But, I also shop at Tops, so I'm an equal opportunity person.
Yeah, you should at Tops. And Tops, you got to have a fat wallet.
Pardon?
You got to have a fat wall at the top.
Yeah, I get on them a little bit, but that intersection, yeah, you're right about that. Another one that bothers me is, you know, you look at the timing like near the zoo there,
Yeah, Glenwood Avenue.
and I'm not quite sure how the turn signals work, whether you have to be up to the line or not, where the sensors are.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people sit there and, you know, the whole thing. Well, you got a bad light at 38th and Davison.
You do?
Well, sure. North and south traffic, you sit there for 4 or 5 minutes while east and west traffic goes.
38th and Davison?
Yeah, right by the school.
Yeah, that could be a timing issue, but I'll check.
Yeah, true. And one other quick thing here, of course, maybe I should come and sit with you for an hour or so.
Why don't you come on here sometime?
And we're looking in the real coal again.
Hey, why don't you come up here? I need until John comes back, I need a cohort.
Yeah, but I understand we're going to be looking for real coal again?
Well, they're going to look at, here's what happens, John. Our equipment is going downhill quick.
Well, there's no doubt about it.
And I'm on the COG, that's the Council of Governments.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big complaints is that whether we like it or not, the majority of hospitals are in the city. Okay?
True.
And the runs are being set up so that what they consider the major runs of the hospitals are being covered. It doesn't have to be called RELCO. It could be whatever system you use. There are other ones out there.
Right.
They just have to be compatible. But one of the things that need to be approached is, for years we've tried to get the mayor and the administration to study the issue about at least putting them in, and there is some grant money available. That's why the COG is getting involved to facilitate putting these in. And I think, you know, council voted to study it. That's all we did, you know, to study it and come back with some cost analysis and how we would do it.
Some solutions.
But I do think the major arteries that lead into the hospital should have a RELCO system. Let's call it, it's not, you know, it doesn't have to be the one that we had, because there are other ones out there, but it needs to be a RELCO type system. And it, by the way, it's all over the country now.
Well, I knew when I used to drive with Lou, we never stopped for a red light.
Well, yeah, you know, that was one of the problems we had, guys setting them.
Well,
At the time, we were one of only 2 cities in the country, and I think it was invented here, actually. Yeah, but now, when you go to Minneapolis, St. Paul, Allentown, any number of cities in the country, they all have a system. It may not be RELCO, but it's an up-to-date system that uses new technology. See, ours had tubes in there, and they can't cannibalize the system anymore.
well, you know, if they would have kept it up to date and
Yes.
kept enough stock on hand, it would still be running.
I'm trying to think who's giving us the money. It might be the gambling, but there is some money out there to study and to facilitate buying the equipment.
Well, I don't know what sort of study.
Well,
You know the traffic pattern.
Well,
You
you
got
know-
a traffic engineer. You know the main arteries coming into these various places.
yeah, that'd be the only thing, is facilitating them. And from what I understand, it's the chief. I'm going to be meeting with him. I'm going to ask him about this, because I know the fire department, I think, had a few that still worked. At least I was told that. But I'm going to ask the police chief, because he was on TV saying that one of the things we would have to study is how to retrofit the equipment.
Well, you retrofit it once you go through. It's about, I believe it was 2 blocks before and 2 blocks after the other side, it would automatically go off.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but I think it's, you know, deciding how much money we want to put into it, using the grant money, and we may have to put some of our own money in there, you know.
True, get some little whiz kids, and they'll show you how to do
Well,
it.
you know, John, one of the things I didn't mention was, with the new parking meters, they actually hired a local firm that, you know, it's one of those nice, you know, stories we talk about.
True.
That instead of going, people always saying, why do we go out of town? Well, a lot of times you don't have anybody who can do it. But here we had a local company that was willing to set up the app so that, you know, between the integration between the parking meters and the app on your phone.
Well, those meters will still take quarters, won't they?
They will well, they haven't decided on the final rollout. They probably will, John.
They should be able to take at least for an hour and a half.
But I don't know whether the new meter, they may take out the new meters, and what you have to do is go to the kiosk, and you'll be able to use money there, rather than the meters.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, the whole purpose is you take out the meters.
But if you got a parking spot and you got to go to the kiosk to get that parking spot, or if you want to go in the courthouse for 15 or 20 minutes,
Yeah.
you got to walk all the way to a kiosk to put in for.
Well, the kiosk will be, right now they're in the exploratory stage. They're checking out a couple companies. But when they decide, like, you know, where they will put them, like, basically you might have one in the middle of the block, or you might have a couple if it's a bigger block, you know.
True.
But it's going to be a rollout with the public, and whether they keep the meters or not, like in the courthouse, they took out the meters. So, you know, if you're going to pay, you go to the kiosk and you put your money in there, or what's going to be more beneficial is you can do an app like I have with the, when I travel on the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
I have preloaded money going into the Easy Pass. You can do that with the parking meters now. You can preload a designated amount of money if you do business downtown, like 10, 20 bucks a month or whatever.
True.
And it'll take it out of there, and you actually don't have to actually go to the kiosk.
In other words, there won't be any cars parked out in front of the courthouse.
What do you mean?
No state police, no sheriff's department, no news media. They'll have to use.
Well, that's a good question. I when I meet with the parking ramp, the parking authority, I'll ask them how they're going to address that issue.
That's right. They should take care of that. You know, let those professional cars.
Well, usually the media was buying a pass, John.
Well, I used to have a pass when I worked for Penelite.
Yeah, they paid for that. You know, that was
$150 a year.
Yeah, and that was a fair amount. You know.
True.
Now the police will say they're under a special exemption rule that they're on business.
I don't know. I saw a state trooper get involved with a meter maid.
Oh yeah, what happened one time when a meter maid tagged a state trooper?
And he tagged her for.
Well, no, it got worse than that. We had one of our guys traveling down 12th Street in a truck, and he noticed that their light wasn't on in the rear, you know, by the license plate.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, you want to play games? Here we go. So every one of our vehicles that was on a state highway. So what they did, they had to have a powwow one day, and you know.
Well, that happened when I was at work.
We'll leave you alone if you leave us alone, you know.
You had a state trooper at one end exit and one other one, and all the vehicles went through a quick light check.
Yeah, that, you know, is what that they say, you know.
Yeah, what goes around comes around.
Yeah, and you know that was comical.
And I'll tell you, that was a busy morning. 4 hours of changing light bulbs. Have a great day.
Hey, that's it. And I know we're going to be going off the air, so I want to thank everybody for calling.
See you later.
Hopefully, I'll see you next week. And with that, Mike, I guess we're out of here.
You have been watching Taxpayers Hotline, recorded live from the fabulous city of Erie, Pennsylvania.